Thanks for your company. Ghana has a current housing deficit of 1.7 million units. During the mid-year budget review, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta announced a national mortgage and housing finance initiative to bridge the gap by providing 1 billion cedi housing fund over the next 5 years. Now, there's a lot to discuss from that budget review as presented by the Finance Minister on Thursday. I will be joined by Philip Nyamfuri, Northern Aqua Hayford from Joy Business, and Dr. Priscilla Chumesi Bafo, an economist and lecturer at the University of Ghana, to discuss the issues. But first, listen to this.
In line of the social partnership and the National Mortgage and Housing Finance Scheme announced in the 2018 budget and economic policy for this August House, the government has designed a scheme to provide cheaper local currency mortgages and residential housing finance to promote social equity. Mr. Speaker, we have observed that to effectively support housing delivery, we must address both the demand and supply side of the housing market and develop a scheme that creates an effective ecosystem for home buyers, developers, and financial institutions. On the demand side, government is working with selected banks to provide local currency mortgages at 10% per annum compared to the current market rates of over 25%. Workers will be encouraged to use their Tier 2 pension contributions as equity in the event of income earners who can still not afford a mortgage at a competitive rate.
Well, I've been joined by two gentlemen and one lady to discuss the issues from yesterday's mid-year budget review. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for joining me this morning. Let's start off with the National Mortgage and Housing Finance Initiative. How feasible do you think this is? Let me start with you, Philip.
Okay, Bernice, thank you very much. Okay, so over the course of our developments, we've all been looking forward to homes or living in terms of access to homes or access to affordable homes. And over the course of Ghana's development, we realized that mortgages, that's getting funds to target purchase of a home, has been a problem. And there have been some interventions from the government side and from the private side. And we know the private side, if you have a mortgage company, you apply for a loan, or you apply for the mortgage, they give you the money, and every month you make some repayments to the company. Now, for the government side, we have them using our national resources, revenues, or whatsoever, to put up these homes and then give them to people for use. But over the course, we've realized that it's not been a bit sustainable, because the issue of affordability is always key. So with this initiative that the finance minister spoke about yesterday, they're looking at 1 billion Ghana cedis, and I heard through the grapevines that a number of banks are already on it in terms of providing the mortgages to the citizens. Now, the key issue here is mortgages are long-term things. We're talking about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Long-term funds are what is needed to provide these mortgages. So if you don't secure long-term funds, then you're going to have a problem going forward. And if you look at the nature of our domestic credit market, when I say credit market within the banking space, you realize that all the sources of funds are short-term. So you realize that banks don't actually have the financial wherewithal to lend to you over a long period. We've seen banks like HFC, now Republic Bank, doing that. We've seen Ghana Home Loans, now GHL Bank, doing that. Most of these institutions secure these funds from beyond the shores of Ghana. That's why you hear people complaining that my mortgage is very expensive, because these institutions have taken facilities in foreign currency. And obviously, they will have to change it to the Ghana cedi to provide you the mortgage.
Exactly.
So you realize that if our cedi-dollar relationship fluctuates a bit, then somebody paying a mortgage starts suffering. So with this initiative, yes, it's laudable by government, but some analysts I have engaged personally have told me that they don't want to see government in this business of providing mortgages again. But if they are going to structure it properly with the help of the private sector to make it sustainable, then that will work well.
Let me come to you, Dr. Chumesi Bafo, because you specialize in poverty and development. This initiative, is it targeting the right people?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your listeners. I believe it's a call in the right direction, and it gives the ordinary worker some hope. The fact that the ordinary worker can use their pension scheme to plan towards a home that they can go into, or they are in, living and pay until retirement. I think it's a brilliant idea. But like Dennis said, we need to look at the rudiments of the implementation of it. It should not necessarily be government being in there to provide mortgages. The mortgages have been in our country all over the years, and the challenge has been that most mortgages are denominated in foreign currency, right? So when our cedi depreciates, then people on mortgages bear the brunt of the depreciation of the currency. And this is exciting. We want to see how this will be operationalized, because this, from all indications, will be denominated in Ghana cedi. And that means that that whole depreciation and the effect that it has on contributors or beneficiaries of mortgages would be taken out. And then the issue of inflation would also have to be looked at in terms of the interest that will be charged. If the proposition is, for example, 10% and inflation rate is 12%, then it means that banks will be losing. So we need to operationalize and see how exactly this thing will come into force. But overall, I think it's exciting news for the ordinary Ghanaian worker.
Interesting. Let me just give some few details to this, because government says that this scheme is to provide cheaper local currency mortgages, local currency mortgages, and residential housing finance to promote social equity and stimulate the economy. They also say the scheme will address both the demand and supply side of the housing market and create an effective ecosystem for home buyers, developers, and financial institutions. By this initiative, they say it's expected that the capacity of each local real estate developer will increase from an average of 50 units per year to about 200 units per year over the medium term. Norvan, we've seen developments like this. We've seen initiatives like this. Governments have come, start putting up structures, start initiatives like this, and we don't see the fruitful or successful implementation of it. Your take on this initiative?
I think that I agree with my other colleagues on the panel, and it is that we as a people have over the years have seen, you talk of under President Kufuor, those affordable housing projects. Where are they? They built. Nobody as of today can say that I own one or the other. We remember under President Mills, some initiative also came in. Under President Mahama, we had some kind of initiatives and all that. The government as it is would have to be able to understand that you have no business engaging in business. When I say that, what do I mean? Yours is to create the enabling environment and allow the private sector to thrive, which means that you set up the structures and allow these people to. So with what they are telling us today, or what we heard from the finance minister yesterday, if that is what you're going to do to ensure that the private sector comes in and the banks also get what they have to do, why not? We will not have a problem. Then it means that if I'm going to mortgage my pensions against getting a home to sleep in, that's a good thing. And one other thing that we must also understand is that now we have almost everybody trying to get a land by himself or herself to put up a house. Why are we not encouraging building these kind of estates, skyscraper buildings? Then you can own that one floor you are looking for, whether it's a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, a single room, a chamber and hall that you are looking for. And these are the things that we need to look at now, because it will get to a point, if we're not careful, there won't even be land anywhere for anybody to put up anything. And so these things all must be looked at and see how you structure it and make it better. Because if you put up, let's say, a 10-story the cost involved in trying to sell to those of us here will be lesser than when you have just put up a 2-bedroom house flat with the land and everything, because you want to consider so many things in getting into pricing that house that we are talking about.
Doc, I want to come back to you because of your specialty in poverty and development. I know that we still don't have a lot of details as to this particular initiative, but for now, don't you think we're leaving out the very informal Ghanaian, someone who is not working like you or I, or working in another formal sector? I would call them the real people who face the serious housing challenges, and we're leaving them out.
I believe that for every policy, there has to be a starting point, right? And you want to see that it works, it is implemented fully, and it's working. So for starters, I feel that yes, it's in the right direction for the formal sector to be the target. Bear in mind, it's not everybody in the formal sector who is well-to-do. There are people on minimum wage as well in the formal sector. The informal sector, I know the Tier 2 pension is also a scheme roped them in, where people in the informal sector are also contributing towards retirement. So I believe that as time goes on, if we see that this scheme is working, they can be roped in with time.